Understanding the True Meaning of Two. John is a 35-year-old office worker living in New York City. On the surface, he seems to have everything that most people dream of: a high-paid job, a modern apartment, and yearly vacations to exotic destinations. But there's one thing he doesn't have: inner peace. Stress, pressure, and frustration have become John's daily companions. Every morning, he rushes to catch the subway, his face tense as he weaves through the crowded platform. At work, the endless stream of meetings drains his energy and clouds his mind. By the time he gets home, his eyes are glued to his phone, responding to emails from his boss. This has been his life for the past 10 years. But one day, something unexpected happened. While scrolling through an online article, John stumbled upon a retreat program in Thailand called Wake Up Asia. It was a 5-day experience where participants were encouraged to slow down, disconnect from their phones, step away from the internet, and leave behind all work emails. Sounds like running away to the woods to live as a monk, John chuckled to himself. His mind immediately pictured bald monks in orange robes, eating simple meals and meditating all day. That's definitely not for me, he thought. After all, he was a busy, ambitious man, but something about it stuck with him. The idea lingered in his mind like an unanswered question. Why am I so afraid of it? This simple question echoed in his thoughts for days. No matter how hard he tried to brush it off, it kept coming back. Why was he so uncomfortable with the idea of slowing down? Why did stillness seem more frightening than busyness? In the end, curiosity, and maybe a little exhaustion, got the best of him. Tired of his daily routine, John decided to give it a try. A 5-day break wouldn't hurt, right? Just 5 days away from emails, deadlines, and that constant buzzing phone. He told himself, if nothing else, at least I'll get a story to tell. But what he didn't know was that this decision would change his life forever. The journey to Wake Up Asia. The flight from New York to Bangkok lasted 18 hours. For most people, that would be a chance to rest, watch movies, or catch up on sleep. But not John. Seated by the window, he had his laptop open, fingers typing furiously on the keyboard. He was drafting emails, checking notifications, and mentally juggling tasks for work. Even at 300 feet in the air, his mind was still chained to deadlines and to-do lists. It wasn't until the flight attendant walked by and reminded him to switch off all electronic devices that he reluctantly closed his laptop with a heavy sigh. For a moment, he leaned back in his seat, staring at the seat in front of him. But instead of feeling relief, his thoughts only grew louder. Did I send that last email? What if they need me while I'm gone? It's funny how, even when you're thousands of miles above ground, your worries somehow stay right by your side. When John finally arrived at the retreat center, he was completely taken aback. Surrounding the living quarters was a lush green forest stretching as far as the eye could see. 15 hectares of towering trees, swaying branches, and wildflowers. No honking cars, no sirens, no glowing neon signs. Instead, there was birdsong. The gentle rustle of leaves swaying in the breeze. A world so quiet, it felt unnervingly loud. John just stood there for a moment, his bag still hanging from his shoulder. He hadn't realized how long it had been since he truly heard nature. Back in New York, he was always rushing from one place to another, earbuds in, drowning out the world with podcasts or music. But here, the world was impossible to drown out. It was alive, and for the first time in a long while, so was he. Day one of the retreat began with something John never expected: a wardrobe change. He was handed a set of clothes, a plain white t-shirt and a pair of loose brown cotton pants. No dress shirt, no tailored suit, no polished leather shoes. As he held them up, he raised an eyebrow and smirked to himself. I look like I'm about to do community service. At first, he felt awkward. Back in New York, appearance was everything. People judged you by your suit, your watch, your shoes. But here, none of that mattered. No one cared. Kids as young as 8 and elders as old as 60 all wore the same simple outfit. No one asked where you bought your clothes. No one cared about your brand or your style. It was a strange kind of freedom. For the first time, John realized that no one was looking at him. No one was judging him. And for the first time in a very long time, he wasn't judging himself either. Understanding the true meaning of two. On the first morning of the retreat, all the participants were gathered in the meditation hall. The atmosphere was still, with only the soft rustling of leaves outside. Slowly, a man stepped forward. It was Master Minh, a teacher with a warm smile and a voice as calm as a steady river. He stood at the front of the room, looked at each person with kind, patient eyes, and spoke slowly, letting each word land with weight. Today, we're going to clarify something very important. What does it mean to two? Many people mistakenly believe that two means shaving your head, wearing monk's robes, and retreating from everyday life. But that's not true. Two is not about changing your appearance. Two is about changing your inner self. Two means to repair. Everyone in the hall sat in silence, hanging on every word. John, sitting near the back, squinted in curiosity. Repair, he thought. What exactly are we supposed to repair? It was as if Master Minh had read their minds, because he continued. We don't need to change the outside world. We need to change the inside world. Instead of fixing a house, we repair the home inside our own mind. We fix our bad habits, our negative thoughts, and our emotions like anger, jealousy, and resentment. Two means to repair from the very roots. John leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as he tried to make sense of it all. Fixing the mind? He had always thought of repairs as something you do to a broken chair or a car engine, not your mind. But the more he listened, the more it started to make sense. It was true after all. How many times had his mind been broken by anger, frustration, or disappointment? How many times had he gotten stuck in endless loops of negative thinking, like a glitchy software program? Master Minh continued, his voice steady and warm. In Buddhism, there are 4 kinds of practitioners: bhikkhus, monks, bhikkhunis, nuns, upasakas, male lay followers, and upasakas, female lay followers. Most people think only monks and nuns are practicing too, but that's not true. Even if you live a normal life, going to work, going to school, and taking care of your family, you can still two, because two is not about robes, shaved heads, or living in a temple. It's about the daily practice of training your mind and nurturing your heart. This idea shook John to his core. For years, he had believed that inner peace was something only monks or spiritual teachers could achieve. But here was Master Minh telling him that even an office worker in New York City could practice too. He didn't have to leave his job or his home. He didn't have to give up his life. What he did have to give up, however, were the stories he told himself, stories of resentment, competition, and self-criticism. I don't need to run away to change my life, John thought. I just need to change how I see it. Master Minh smiled knowingly, sensing that his words were beginning to take root in the minds of his students. He paused for a moment, and then shared a simple but profound analogy. Our minds are like a garden. If you don't tend to it, weeds will grow. And those weeds, anger, jealousy, and selfishness, will overrun the flowers. Two is the act of pulling out those weeds and watering the seeds of kindness, compassion, and patience. Instead of focusing on what's wrong with others, we water the good seeds inside ourselves and in the people around us. John closed his eyes as he pictured it, a lush garden filled with flowers, but also patches of wild weeds growing wildly in every direction. He imagined himself bent over, pulling out each weed with patience and care. It's just like life, he thought. If I don't watch my own mind, all the negativity takes over. Suddenly, something clicked. He realized that for most of his life, he had been so focused on changing other people, proving himself at work, getting his boss's approval, winning arguments with colleagues, that he'd never thought about changing himself. He was so busy trying to fix the world around him that he forgot to check on the garden of his own mind. The weight of Master Minh's words sank in deeper than John expected. For the first time, he understood that two wasn't something abstract or distant. It wasn't about religion or rituals. It was about repair. Simple, deliberate repair, repairing thoughts, repairing words, repairing actions. It was like the updates on his phone's software. Every few months there would be a notification for a new update. At first it felt like a nuisance, but over time John realized that those updates fixed bugs, made the system run smoother, and prevented the phone from crashing. His mind wasn't any different. It needed updates too. Updates to remove the bugs of anger, ego, and impatience. Two is to repair, he thought. But this time, I'm the software. Master Minh ended the session with one final reminder. Orders seldom come from above. Don't wait for a perfect moment to start two. You don't have to wait for your life to fall apart. Start with the small things. Be mindful of your words. Be gentle with your thoughts. And when you catch yourself angry or impatient, pause and take a deep breath. That breath, that moment of awareness, is to. For the rest of the retreat, those words echoed in John's mind. Two is to repair. Not just once, not just for a moment, but every single day. It wasn't about fixing the people around him. It was about repairing himself. He didn't need to change his job, his boss, or his friends. He needed to change his own thoughts, his own reactions, and his own heart. And perhaps for the first time in his life, John realized that peace wasn't something to chase after. It wasn't at the end of a vacation. It wasn't in the next job promotion. Peace was already there. He just had to clear out the weeds to see it. From that moment on, the words, two is to repair, were etched into his heart. It wasn't just a theory, it was a practice. And like every practice, it didn't require perfection, just patience, and all he needed to start was one deep breath. John's journey to mindfulness. On the first day of the Wake Up Asia retreat, John felt completely out of place. He couldn't break free from his old habits, checking his phone every 10 minutes. But this time things were different. His phone had been collected as soon as he arrived. No laptop, no email, no messages from his boss. It was just him and himself, and strangely, that was the part that unsettled him the most. Late morning, the meditation bell rang at 5 a.m. It echoed softly through the stillness of the retreat center. John groaned as he rolled out of bed, his face scrunched up with annoyance. Waking up this early without an alarm clock? Unthinkable. All the participants gathered in the meditation hall, sitting cross-legged on small cushions. No background music, no lectures, just the sound of silence. At the front of the room, Master Minh spoke in a calm, steady voice. Listen to your breath. Inhale. I know that I am inhaling. Exhale. I know that I am exhaling. John closed his eyes, but he wasn't searching for peace. His mind was louder than ever. What about that unfinished project? Did my boss message me? Am I forgetting something? His thoughts leapt from one to the next, like a restless monkey jumping from branch to branch. 15 minutes passed, but it felt like an hour. He opened his eyes. sighed heavily, and thought, "How am I supposed to sit like this for 30 whole minutes?" On the third day, something unexpected happened. The participants were introduced to a practice called watering the flowers. They were asked to sit in a circle and share kind words about one another. At first, John rolled his eyes. "What is this, elementary school? Compliment circle?" he muttered to himself. But when it was the young woman's turn to speak, she turned to John. She looked him directly in the eyes and said, "I admire your calmness, even when you seem stressed. You always try to stay present and complete each task." That's not easy to do. John blinked, stunned. "Calm me," he thought. For years, he had told himself that he needed to be the best at everything. Perfection, success, achievement. But here was a stranger recognizing something in him that he hadn't seen in himself. Warmth spread through his chest like sunlight breaking through a cloudy sky. All it took was one person noticing his effort, and suddenly that effort felt worthwhile. On the fourth day, Master Minh introduced a concept called letting go. Standing at the front of the room, he spoke slowly and clearly. Whenever you feel anger rising within you, pause. Breathe. You don't need to win every argument. We don't have to defeat others. The only person we need to conquer is ourselves. The words hit John like a wave. His mind flashed back to a specific moment at work, an argument with a coworker over a small detail in a presentation. It had escalated quickly, with both of them raising their voices in front of the team. I was so focused on being right, John realized. But I wasn't right. I was just stubborn. He thought of Master Minh's words again. Breathe, let go. In that moment, John realized that letting go didn't mean giving up or losing. It meant winning the battle with his own ego. For the first time, he felt the weight of that realization settle in his heart. On the final day, the entire group took part in a walking meditation through the forest. They lined up in a single file, walking slowly and deliberately along a dirt path that wove through 15 hectares of lush green trees. Every step was slow. Every step was intentional. Each footstep felt like a small miracle. Feel the earth beneath your feet, Master Minh had instructed them. Every step is a chance to be present. John followed the group, his gaze focused on the ground in front of him. Each step he noticed the way his foot touched the earth. Heel first, then the ball of his foot, then his toes. He took a breath. Step. He exhaled. Step. It was so simple, but in that simplicity, he found something he hadn't felt in a long time. Stillness. The forest felt alive. Leaves rustled in the breeze. The air was rich with the smell of earth and flowers. Above him, the sky peeked through the canopy. And for the first time in a decade, he noticed something he'd been too busy to see. There were so many stars. The night, after dinner, the group gathered around a fire pit. Flames flickered softly, casting long shadows on the ground. John leaned back, staring at the night sky, his eyes tracing constellations he hadn't seen in years. The stars were always there, he thought. Just because I didn't see them didn't mean they weren't there. It was such a simple thought, but it struck him deeply. How many other things have I missed because I wasn't looking? The next day, John packed his bag and boarded a plane back to New York. But something had shifted inside him. At the airport, he didn't feel the usual tension of waiting in long security lines. He didn't rush past people like he usually did. Instead, he walked slowly. He noticed the feeling of his feet against the tile floor. Step, breath, step. He noticed the people around him, not just as obstacles to move past, but as people. He even smiled at a few strangers, and to his surprise, a few of them smiled back. As he walked through the city streets of New York, Surrounded by the rush of people, cars, and flashing lights, John felt something new. He felt calm. No phone in his hand, no urgent messages to check. Just his breath, just his footsteps, just the present moment. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he could still hear Master Minh's voice. Breathe, let go. And for the first time in his life, John did. John's return to New York. When John returned to New York, he wasn't the same person he had been before. He still went to his office job, he still attended meetings and dealt with deadlines, but something had changed. Whenever stress began to rise, he took a deep breath and reminded himself. 2 means to repair, don't get angry. He learned to smile at his co-workers. He practiced patience when listening to others, even when he disagreed with them. It wasn't that the world around him had changed, he had changed. Before the retreat, John thought 2 was something distant, something reserved for monks or spiritual masters. But now he understood that 2 doesn't mean abandoning your life. It doesn't mean leaving behind your family, your job, or your responsibilities. 2 means coming back to yourself and repairing what's inside. Sometimes you don't need to do anything dramatic to practice 2. You don't have to run away to a temple. You don't have to shave your head. You don't have to quit your job or change your entire life. All you have to do is come back to yourself. You don't have to go anywhere to find peace. Right now, in this very moment, if you're feeling stressed, stop for just a second. Take a deep breath. Look deeply at your own frustration, your own anger. In that moment, you are practicing 2. John found his path. He learned to repair himself, 1 breath at a time. But what about you? Are you ready to make a change? Are you ready to repair yourself to live a lighter, more peaceful life each day? You don't have to change your appearance to it. 2 isn't about the outside. 2 is about the heart, the mind, and the soul. And you already have everything you need to start. Just take 1 breath and begin.